Welcome to Reparenting Radio. I'm Lisa Watson, a transformational coach, author, and cycle breaker, just like you. This podcast is a sacred space for truth-telling, remembrance, and radical healing. Each week, I share stories, spiritual teachings, and nervous system wisdom to help dismantle disempowering beliefs, break generational cycles, and reclaim our sovereignty. So together, we can build a new world rooted in love and freedom for the generations to come. If you're ready to remember who you are beneath the programming, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Welcome back to Reparenting Radio. Today's conversation is one that has been echoing in me for weeks now. It started with a post that I saw on social media about homeschooling. Someone had written that homeschooling offers better socialization because children spend time with people of all ages, not just kids their own age. And oh my gosh, I have to tell you, that really resonated with me because that is one of the main reasons that I chose to homeschool my boys starting back in 1994. My youngest went to 10th grade and my oldest went to 11th grade at a public high school. When I first made the decision to homeschool, people would often ask me, well, not just often, I swear it seemed like everyone who I told I was homeschooling or found out I was homeschooling said this to me. Aren't you worried about socialization? And I always loved that question because my answer was always the same. Yes, I am very, very concerned about socialization, and that is exactly why I am choosing to homeschool. That response usually left people looking at me like I had three heads, but it's okay. Because here's the thing. It's not about how much we socialize. It's about who we're socializing with, especially while the subconscious mind is being formed. Because the quality of connection shapes the quality of our programming. And I knew that even back at age 23. Or I guess I wasn't 23 then. I was like 27. But the people that we spend time with, the most time with, their tone, their beliefs, their values, their energy, even the state of their nervous system all become part of our natural wiring. So children don't just absorb information, they're actually absorbing frequency and scripts. The tone, the energy, the beliefs, the habits, the scripts, what people are saying, all of it gets recorded into the subconscious as the baseline for what's normal and acceptable. So what happens in the brain during socialization? Well, we unconsciously absorb the energy, emotion, scripts, and habits of the people that are around us. And that programming will continue long into adulthood. Because whether we're 5 or we're 55, the nervous system is always listening. And it's really simple science that explains it. The human brain is designed for connection. It learns who it is through relationship. From the moment that we're born, our minds and nervous system begin syncing with the people around us, absorbing their tone, their energy, their expressions, and their emotional and language patterns. Every interaction becomes information. Every voice, every look, every reaction is teaching the developing brain what is safe, what's dangerous, and what love, anger, disappointment, and fear all look like. So when a child grows up in an environment that's chaotic, controlling, or emotionally inconsistent, their system learns to stay on alert. It wires for protection, not presence. But when that same child is surrounded by calm, curious, emotionally available adults, then their brain learns something very different. It wires for confidence, creativity, and connection. That's why the quality of socialization matters far more than the quantity. A child surrounded by 10 dysregulated classmates will learn chaos faster than collaboration. But one consistent, safe, emotionally grounded adult can rewire an entire nervous system towards trust and stability. Because socialization isn't just exposure, it's programming. We're constantly downloading the emotional energy and behavioral patterns of the people around us. And imagine for a moment if classrooms reflected real life instead of age-segregated bubbles. What would it look like? If children of different ages learned and played together, younger ones would naturally look up to older students who could model patience, problem solving, and emotional regulation. The older kids would develop empathy, leadership, and responsibility as they helped the younger ones, learning to explain and include and guide them. That's how human beings evolve to learn, through community, through modeled behavior, through observation, imitation, and shared experience with people at different stages of development. I was actually talking about this with my son recently and telling him what I was going to talk about on an upcoming podcast. And he said, absolutely, that's right about schools and kids, being around kids all the same age. He said, but that's not what schools were designed for. And he's right. Our modern school system was built during the industrial era. It was shaped by men like the Rockefellers, not to cultivate authenticity or emotional intelligence, but to create workers. It was designed to train children to follow instructions, sit still, and function within a system, to prepare them for assembly lines and office cubicles, not for consciousness, creativity, or self-awareness. So when parents ask, why don't they teach emotional intelligence or finance or mindfulness or self-trust in school? Well, the answer is really simple. That was never the purpose. Once you understand that, you stop being confused by the system and you start reclaiming choice. You can decide, do I want my child conditioned to fit in, or do I want them supported to stand out? Do I want them trained for compliance or guided toward curiosity and connection? Because when we see the system clearly, we can stop outsourcing our children's programming to it, and we can start consciously designing environments that nurture authenticity, creativity, and the evolution of the soul. A mixed age environment nurtures perspective, compassion, and cooperation, not comparison or competition. It teaches that everyone has something to give and something to learn, and that's the kind of socialization that builds true confidence, emotional intelligence, and belonging. I used to fantasize about daycare centers that were a mixture of old age homes. I can't think of the appropriate way to say it. Retirement homes where the elderly would be mixed in with the toddlers and that they would actually help to watch them. Can you imagine how that would transform both a daycare center and an old age home facility? Because socialization, it provides a kind of hidden curriculum. It's the unspoken lessons that shape who they become. When kids spend most of their time with peers who are also still emotionally developing, they're exchanging nervous system cues with others who haven't yet learned how to self-regulate or empathize. They learn tone before truth, mimicry before mastery. And let's be honest, a room full of dysregulated 5-year-olds trying to model emotional intelligence for each other is a recipe for confusion, not connection. It's no wonder that so many of us grew up learning to perform instead of feel, to please instead of process. Because children don't just absorb information, they absorb frequency and scripts. They take in the emotional patterns, the communication styles, and the coping mechanisms that they witness. And those become the unconscious codes that run in the background of their adult lives. The real curriculum of life isn't taught, it's modeled. It's in the way we speak when we're frustrated, the way we repair after conflict, the way we move through stress. Children and adults don't need perfect teachers. They need regulated mirrors. People whose presence says you're safe, whose energy says you can be your authentic self here. Because when our system feels safe, theirs learns safety. And that's the essence of reparenting, healing our own patterns so that we stop passing them down by default and raising a generation that knows exactly how to connect, not just to conform. Here's the thing. This doesn't stop in childhood. Even as adults, our nervous systems are still syncing with our environments. It's something called social entrainment. It's the way our emotional baseline adjusts to the energy that we're surrounded by. There's a saying that you've probably heard, you become most like the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And there's so much truth in that, not just energetically, but neurologically. Your brain and body literally begin to mirror the habits, emotions, and nervous system states of the people around you. So I want you to think about this for a second. Who are you regularly around? What emotional frequencies do they live in? And how does your body feel after being with them? Is it expanded or contracted? Because your nervous system is always listening. Healing requires boundaries. No matter how much inner work you do, if your outer world keeps pulling you back into old frequencies, your system won't feel safe to evolve. You don't just socialize. You synchronize. And you have the power to choose what and who you're programming with, who you're syncing with. If you want to elevate your life, expand your vocabulary, deepen your experiences, maybe attract aligned partnerships and create more abundance, then you should start by surrounding yourself with people who are already living in that vibration. Be around those who challenge you to grow, who regulate through integrity, who hold higher standards of love, communication, and consciousness. Because your environment is your mirror. And your next level won't come from being around people who pull you backward. Reprogramming yourself is about becoming more conscious of what you allow in your field. As we talk about who we surround ourselves with, it's important to remember something else about the healing journey. It's common, and I've seen this in myself, in my clients, I see it all over social media, that as we go through this deep transformation, we often isolate ourselves. It's like we instinctively crawl back into our shell to reset to a baseline of 0. We start pulling away from the people, places, and patterns that used to define us because we're trying to remember who we actually are beneath all that noise. And that's healthy. That's sacred. Because it's really hard to find your authenticity in the middle of everyone else's expectations and the old stories that they're telling about you. Heck, I got up and moved to Mexico in the early years of my healing journey, not because I had it all figured out, because I didn't. I needed space to hear myself again, to reconnect with a me that I hadn't even met yet. That move wasn't an escape, it was a return. Isolation isn't always avoidance. Sometimes it's alignment. It's the soul's way of saying, I need to hear my own frequency again. And when you start to separate from everything external, the noise, the roles, the approval, the programming, what you find is the still, quiet truth within you. And that is where God lives. That is your North Star. That's where your nervous system finally starts to regulate because it's safe to be your authentic self. And once you know that self, once you've remembered her, you can begin inviting people back in who resonate with that new vibration. People who meet you in peace, not performance. People who expand you, not drain you. Children don't need to be around crowds of people all the time, and neither do we. We just need to be around quality people, those who model safety, curiosity, and connection. And the same goes for your adult self. Healing is remembering that you were never meant to fit in. You were meant to belong, and belonging begins from within. So if you don't have quality people around you to surround yourself with in your current reality, you can start by immersing yourself in higher frequencies through what you watch, read, and listen to. Books, podcasts, videos, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if those people are in the same room with you or not. Your nervous system doesn't know the difference. What your body hears and sees, it mirrors. So you can choose people and environments, physical or digital, that model for your system what safety, possibility, and expansion look and feel like. So as you move through your week, I want you to notice. Notice how your body feels around certain people. Notice the conversations that expand you versus the ones that drain you. Notice where you still feel like that child trying to fit in instead of belonging. This awareness is where the reprogramming begins. Because when we choose connection over conformity, we stop recreating the past and we start embodying who we came here to be. So if you're on the fence of whether to homeschool your child or send them to a regular school, just ask yourself, what's the quality of the social environment that I'm putting my child in? What do I want them to learn? Do I want them to learn how to behave within a system? Or do I want them to learn how to be the fullest expression of their own authentic, unique self and feel safe to do so? If you'd like to go deeper into this work, you can download my Quick Start Guide to Reparenting Yourself or the Quick Start Guide to Conscious Parenting. You will find both of them linked in the show notes. Thank you for joining this episode of Reparenting Radio. If it sparked something in you, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a fellow cycle breaker. If you want to go deeper, visit my website at reparent-yourself.com for healing tools and programs. And be sure to explore my soul-nourishing children's books at awakentheone.org. Until next time, stay sovereign, speak your truth, and keep reparenting your way home to yourself.